At one point, I had 10 days to live. It was very, very serious. I had 5 surgeries in 4 weeks, major surgeries. I didn't know what a colon was, and my surgeon said, we're gonna have to take your colon out. And he described it as being like tissue paper, wet tissue paper, that I can't stitch, I can't do anything to replace this problem. So the colon went out. I had actually decided to go to hospice. I thought it was all over with. I said, I'm not gonna have anything else done to me. I was at the hospital. I said, I want everything disconnected, and my doctor, he actually cried. He said, you want everything taken off? I said, everything taken off. And they realized then that the patient is the boss. And I had 2 firefighter friends who actually bundled me up on a cold day and took me to life care. It was very emotional. All the nurses at the hospital were standing at the honor walk, and there's a lot of tears. Then I went to life care, and lo and behold, 2 grandsons were there. Very emotional for them, but they couldn't believe what I was going through. And they were in the ambulance when I was unloaded, and I was about ready to say goodbye, and life care got me through. I believe in my Lord Jesus Christ, and He's got me through. So many things have happened to me. It's always the prayers that got me through when I was ready to give up. And that is strong. The faith of the Lord is very strong. I've had so many things happen to me. I was born in Florida, and my father and my grandfather were partners in the hotel business, and as a result, I lived about 2 years in many, many places, from Mississippi to Florida, and of course in Shreveport. And Shreveport was probably my favorite place I've ever lived.
And topping the news today,
I wanted to be a radio announcer. In fact, when I was a little fella, I made a microphone with a broomstick. My mother's Christmas tree was up, and I was talking on that alleged radio microphone and knocked the tree over. I worked at a drugstore and jerked sodas. Making milkshakes and malted milks and things of that nature is what my pride was. I entered a contest for a radio station that did a remote service out of Knoxville. My parents put me on a bus, Greyhound bus, to go to Lenore City. I won that contest and was able to talk on the radio. I thought that's the greatest thing in the world. So I think it was the fascination of being able to talk to somebody and they heard it somewhere else. I grew up in Shreveport in high school and started in radio in Shreveport. KWKH, which is a 50,000 watt station, it was unheard of for a newcomer to be involved in the 50,000 watt station, but all I did was give the call letters. From Louisiana, we moved to a couple of places that I was not in radio. Clarksdale, Mississippi was one town we moved to, but my love for radio continued. One of the radio stations in Memphis, which was a major station, had a contest, and my father and I went to Memphis to perform on a radio station. I thought that's the biggest thing in the world. In the Air Force, I was an airborne radio operator. I was able to work on the ham band and became involved a lot in communications for the Air Force, and it enhanced my career into broadcasting. I went to the University of Tennessee. Didn't graduate, but attended. Always looking for a job in radio. I worked for a while in Sweetwater at a radio station, WDEH. I thought, well, I'm not getting anywhere there. It was 1964, and a friend of mine at WCLE said they have an opening at WCLE. So this job came up, big city, Cleveland, that I thought I'm going to be a star. I went from Sweetwater, Tennessee to Cleveland, Tennessee. I worked for that station, WCLE, and then finally moved up to management position, program director, and then bought the station. I didn't know anything. I was like I am today. I wasn't real smart, So I tried to learn everything about broadcasting that I could. The first person I ever interviewed was Stuart Hamlin, who was running for president of the United States. And I thought, well, boy, that is something. I'm talking to a guy that's running for president. He might be president, I don't know. I became fascinated with interviewing people. Senator Kefauver, when he passed away, I was selected in the broadcast pool to go to the coffin, and that was in Sweetwater, Tennessee. The Governor Clement, I believe, was the governor there. And I thought I was in high cotton because I was able to interview some people that I knew Uthant was the United Nations ambassador, and all those people I interviewed, and I didn't know who I was talking to, but it was so nice to be talked to people that I had heard about. I did some TV commercials, but never into TV. One station I had was a little station in Quitman, Georgia, just out of Valdosta. One of the governors of Georgia was running for office, and he liked my voice and selected me to do commercials for his campaign, Governor Sanders. And so I did that, and I thought, well, boy, I'm in high cotton now. I'm doing those commercials for the next governor of Georgia. Cleveland was a small, big town, big city. I thought it was a big city because I'd come from Sweetwater. And man, has it grown now. It has just blossomed. When Ralph Emery, who worked for WSM in Nashville, retired, there was an opportunity to become his replacement. I auditioned on an old tape recorder, reel to reel, in my kitchen. And I made a commercial and sent it to WSM. And WSM called me and they said, we're going to give you a physical and you're getting close to being hired. And I thought, wow, WSM was the station to go to. I thought, that's going to be big time. So I made the commercial. I was selected to come to Nashville for an interview. It lasted about 2.5 days. But lo and behold, the guy that got the job was my next door neighbor in Cleveland. He worked for a Chattanooga radio station. And I had no idea he had applied. He didn't know that I had applied. So I was second to being on the Grand Ole Opry, to being one of their staff announcers, and to replace Ralph Emery, a longtime announcer on WSM. So that's sort of the bug that I caught and stayed with me for a while. Sandra was in the newspaper business and I was in the radio business. So it was pretty logical because she was cheap. We'd go cover meetings together. I guess we were covering a meeting in Polk County. We met there. It was covering a news story at the Lake Ocoee Inn. I actually broke a tooth while we were talking and tried to cover that up. And I guess where I said, you're gonna be lucky enough to marry me maybe 55 years ago. And I guess she felt I was a good choice. So we got married and it's been a good ride. She's the glue that holds us all together. With some health problems I've got, I couldn't exist if it wasn't for her. She sacrifices a lot. She's precious. I have a son and a daughter. And my son's a DEA agent, my daughter's a housewife. And they're all from the Atlanta area. And we now have 2 grandchildren. And one has just given us our newest great-grandson. And they've all moved to Cleveland. And they all are Lee involved. That's the greatest thing in the world to think they've come to Cleveland for me. We put the FM station on, which became US 101. It was one of the prominent stations in the community. The WCLE AM station was for sale. There was nobody running the station, and I thought, well, now's the time to buy it. And with about 2 other partners, and we didn't have any money, but we were able to raise the money and buy the station. We went on to acquire the FM station. We made more money doing that. Today, WCLE is one of the prominent stations in the community. After a broadcast career, which lasted for many years and ended in 1964, I believe, I was appointed as fire commissioner for the city of Cleveland for about 6 months, I guess. And the first time I was entered into politics. The then mayor, Bill Schultz, asked me would I run for mayor. And that was a big surprise. We only had about 2 days before the time to make it official. So I conversation with my wife and other people, decided we'd make it a go. So when I ran for mayor the first time, I had two opponents. One, a very formidable opponent, a former eye doctor in town. And I had no idea that I'd win the election, but I won with every precinct except one, and I tied in that one. Anyway, I've been successful with running several times. With the grace of God, I was able to win every one of those with opponents. A couple of times I didn't have any opponents at all, and that was the best time to run for office when you're a politician. The day I took over as mayor, I knew the ropes. I knew what they were doing. On the news, I'd covered every city council meeting for years and years and years. So I was familiar with the workings of the council, the workings of city government, the workings of state government. It was a good fit. It was a good fit. Working with the Chamber of Commerce, of course, cutting a lot of ribbons too. A typical day was probably to meet with chamber folks and let's see what's coming up next and to see what we can do. There are grants to acquire. We have to look at property, we have to look at taxes. And low taxes in Bradley County are very important. And the property, available property is probably the most important thing in the world, because if you don't have the property, you don't have the industrial construction. I had a lot of fun as mayor, many visits to the White House and learning a lot about the inner workings of the White House. And then, of course, Lee University is the crown jewel of our community. I would hate to see Lee University not be in Cleveland. It has made Cleveland. We have had a good relationship with Dr. Codd and others at Lee, and I feel like that my relationship with Lee and the relationship with Dr. Codd has been very profitable in bringing our community up to the next level. Billy Graham lived in one of the dormitories, and the street that he crossed was the street we dedicated as Billy Graham Avenue. I set some goals when I was first elected, and that was this museum. We didn't have a museum in Cleveland. And we had the museum in Athens, which was downstairs in a hallway. And I thought, well, we got to beat that. So I started the campaign to build a museum for Cleveland. And this was, of course, very successful. The Greenway system, I was probably the initiator of that. And then the depot at 5 Points was a project I had as well. And it was refurbished, and now it's a transportation hub. We were in desperate need of a new airport for Cleveland. I was able to have enough people to support the airport, and now we have one of the finest. In fact, it is the finest in the state. The Tennessee Aeronautics Commission has said it is the best in the state, and we're very proud of that. With the industry we have in Cleveland, it's very important that we have that as a transportation hub as well. One thing I've done since I've been mayor was to be involved in industrial prospects such as Bacher, and the new Whirlpool plant was very important to us. A lot of these industrial prospects we would have lost if we didn't have an airport. I love first responders, love the military. I was very pleased to see Cleveland High School become an ROTC, Air Force ROTC. As an Air Force veteran, I was very proud of that. In fact, they named a building after me because of that. And then, of course, at Bradley Central High School with the Army ROTC, and then now Walker Valley High School with the Navy ROTC. I think says a lot for our community, which is a very patriotic community. For 50 years, I emceed all of the Veterans Day services and the Memorial Day services for Cleveland and Bradley County. I was elected president of the Cherokee Red Clay Association. I worked very hard to establish that as a state park. We were able to dedicate a new police station. In Cleveland, Tennessee, it's okay to say Merry Christmas. This was the era when everybody was saying, don't say Merry Christmas. All the stores were saying Happy Holidays. So we bought these buttons. We bought about 500 of them or something like that. I gave them away. And finally we needed to buy about 2,000, I guess. And CNN did a story and said even in little Cleveland, Tennessee, they were saying Merry Christmas. And I thought, boy, I'm proud of that. One thing that I've tried very hard to get in Cleveland and for Bradley County and for this community is Amtrak rail service. My wife and I spent a lot of times traveling together, going to the National Passenger Railway Service, which is in Washington, to lobby for Amtrak service. I have an Amtrak engine over here that was the closest I could get to it. That was a big battle. I kept thinking that, well, we're going to hit it lucky because new funding is going to come in, and then, new funding would come in, and they needed that for the rail service to get the engines built, new engines and things of that nature. So we never really acquired Amtrak service. I've come close, but we haven't gotten it yet. I decided Cleveland is a great place to live because the people here are just wonderful. And I look at all the community. I look at the industry. I look at Lee University, look at Cleveland State Community College, new factories coming in. It was just an exciting time. It was exciting when you landed a new factory, and it was a team effort with the Chamber of Commerce and many other people involved, the legislative delegation. I just thought that was the greatest thing in the world to get a new industry in. I've been asked to go to a higher office, but I never thought seriously about it. I thought I'm going to do what I can do here, do what I can in Cleveland to make our community better. And that's what I think I've done. I was offered a position as a cabinet member of one of the governors. My wife was too, and we turned that down. We were both going to go to Nashville. That was if Zach Wamp had been elected. Congressman Wamp said we want 2 for 1, so I'd have probably accepted that. I look around at the pictures that I've got on the wall. Some are not important to a lot of people, but everything in that wall means something to me. Meeting the presidents, I couldn't buy those memories. Richard Nixon, doing an interview at Chickamauga Dam with him. I did fly on Air Force One. I have a cap, in fact, that was given to me by President Bush. Some of the finest people in the world were the Bushes, both Daddy Bush and President Bush. Unusual thing happened with President Clinton. When we were meeting at the White House, I was at the dining room, and I was there sipping coffee. They told me that it's time to go in to talk to the president. And I had a little saucer, and normally they would take the saucer and refill it, the butlers would. So this time, they said, I'll just fill your cup back up. Well, it's time for me to go in to meet the president. So I had that saucer in my hand, so what I do, I'm walking in the other room, in the blue room, and I put that in my pocket. And actually forgot about it till we got back to the hotel, and Sandra said, what is that saucer doing in your pocket? And it was a saucer from the White House. So I was scared to death. My son is now a DEA agent, and I didn't know anybody to call but him, and I said, Bobby, what'd I do? He said, call archives because they won't know what you're talking about at the White House. Call archives and tell them what happened. Be very honest about it. So I did. I said, I've got your saucer. They said, is it damaged in any way? And I said, well, it's got a little chip on it. So they said, it's okay, we wouldn't use it. So I was cleared for stealing the saucer at the White House. I learned one thing by going to the White House quite a bit. When you go to the restroom, I don't guess I was stealing them. I was probably taking more than I should. The little napkins were endorsed with this presidential seal. And the mayor of Chattanooga was in that room with me, and he said, I'd love to have one of those napkins for my son. I said, I think I know how to get you one. So I had a system going up where I could wash my hands with a little napkin and take about 4 of them under my coat, go back to the stall, the restroom, and then I would dump them out. And I kept on doing that because the new people were going in the restroom by the hour, and they didn't know I was there. So I was really making a lot of headway with souvenirs with a lot of those little towels. So we were going back to the hotel. He said, did you get me a towel? I said, if I happen to open my coat pocket, they'll all fall out. I don't get out like I used to, but I have a lot of pastor friends that visit me quite a bit, and it's just like I was in their church. We're members of the Westmore Church of God. I grew up as a Baptist, and she grew up as a Baptist. It doesn't happen in a lot of communities that people say, I'm praying for you. Every day you've got a decision to make, a tough decision, and we're praying for you. We had a bad wreck about 10 years ago, and the first responders were right there. They saved my life, saved her life too, and prayer got us through. In 2018, I chose to retire. Kevin Brooks, who's now the mayor, and I had a lot of conversation, and Kevin was wanting to leave the legislature, and we decided this would be a good fit for me to step down and him to go ahead and run for mayor, and I endorsed him as mayor. A lot of people have honored me with prayers. It's amazing how many times my pastor friends will call me or come to the house and say, just want to pray with you. And it seems like it's always timely. There was a prayer service at WCLE, in fact, that Steve Hartline put together to have prayers for Tom Rowland. Prayers got me through. I couldn't have done it without the prayers of the people in the community and so many pastor friends that I had. Even the Baptists prayed hard for the Church of God person, and that was 3 years ago. I serve my Lord, and I want to be remembered as doing as much for my community as I can.